All right, people. This is the fifth time I've recorded this, and it says I'm recording this right here on YouTube, and it says it's failed to convert video format. Well, it's their own video format. So that should give you some reason to ponder what I'm about to read to you. You need to take this seriously. I do. I got this document from sourcewatch.com. Previous to my computer being hacked, I had gotten this from Cornell Law University. So let's just see what we get here. Regarding what is known as a state of national emergency, Paula Demir writes, according to the United States Constitution, Article 1, only Congress shall make federal law. However, since the War and Emergency Powers Act of 1933, every president has usurped lawmaking powers. Their laws are called executive orders. These executive orders, not our Constitution, are what is governing America today. The War and Emergency Power Act enables the president to declare a national emergency and thereby become a dictator. Presidents can also carefully choose their words and declare a war on anything in order to give them dictatorial control. For example, the war on drugs makes it possible to use federal authorities such as FBI, FEMA, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the military against American citizens. A well-known example is Waco. Another example is Hurricane Opal. Another example is Hurricane Katrina, where they went around and stripped everyone of their firearms, regardless of whether they were a law-abiding citizen or not. After Florida was declared a national emergency, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, arrived on the scene, and residents were placed under martial law, restricted to the point of not going outside their door. When the federal government does this, it is going against the Constitution. The War and Emergency Powers Act is an unconstitutional act on the part of our government, created so that presidents can bypass Congress and do whatever they choose. You know, we have the executive, we have the legislative, and then we have the judicial branch. And the press was supposed to be the fourth column of our republic. All right? Now, these are all supposed to be a separation of powers to keep it balanced. Well, guess who owns legislature? That's big corporation. As well as judicial, that's owned by, let's see, the president and Congress. Ergo, corporations again. So, and corporations own all the media, don't they? So much for keeping separation of powers away from any one branch. All right. When the federal, the War and Emergency Powers Act is an unconstitutional act on the part of our government, created so that presidents can bypass Congress and do whatever they choose. It also makes it possible to do away with posse comitatus in cases of emergency. Posse comitatus is what protects American citizens from the military being used against them. Well, that's already been on the way, waylaid to the side. As well as writ of habeas corpus. You no longer have those rights for fast and speedy trial and representation and innocent until proven guilty, etc., etc., etc. Now they can just lock you up if they don't like how you look, and they can keep you locked up for the rest of your life, strip you of your citizenship and even your unalienable rights from your creator because they will refuse to acknowledge them. Yes, that's the world you live in. That's the world I live in. All right, people. Emergency Power Statute, Senate Report 93549. See, now, with all these sites and sources I'm referring to, you can look it up and confirm this for yourselves. Don't take my word on this. This is too important of a matter. That's why I keep sitting here redoing this video over and over again. And I know this ain't going to fit into one, so I'm going to call this one Part 1. Hopefully this time it won't tell me it's unable to convert the file format, seeing as it's a direct upload to their site. They must really think we're retards. Emergency Powers Statute, Senate Report 93-549. In this 1973 official report, U.S. Senate admits that the emergency powers given to the President, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, under the pretense of the national emergency of 1933 have remained in force, and that the normal function of the federal government has been suspended. 93rd Congress, Senate Report number 93-549, first session. See War Powers Act. When Congress declares an emergency, there is no Constitution. I check my time. I still got it. Okay. Dr. Eugene Schroeder, a founder of the American Agricultural Movement, and David Schechter, in their book War, Central Planning and Corporations, the Corporate State, discuss the long-lasting impacts of the powers granted by the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1933, Public Law 73-10. The Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1933, commonly referred to as the Farm Bill, a curse to farmers for so many years. Now you know why they had Farm Aid, and why so many farmers lost their farms to big corporations. Was a key piece of legislation in these emergency powers, for it took the power to coin and regulate money away from Congress as provided in the Constitution and gave it to the President. Tracing back through the archives, further investigation showed how emergency government was simultaneously implemented in all states through a highly coordinated effort coming straight down from FDR and the federal government. Emergency government outside the bounds of the Constitution has now been the norm for more than 64 years, according to the Senate's own study. The Senate's own study. So you need to realize everybody that's been in the judicial, executive, legislative branch has been guilty of high treason for allowing this to continue to happen because it's unconstitutional. So you got to go all the way back to 1933 and actually earlier for when this act was first written. And then you'll have the people who are culpable and responsible, but they're still in power. All right. Gary North writes in 1933, Congressman James M. Beck, speaking from the congressional record, states, I think of all the damnable heresies that have ever been suggested in connection with the Constitution. The doctrine of emergency is the worst. It means that when Congress declares an emergency, there is no Constitution. This means it's death. It is the very doctrine that the German Chancellor is invoking today in the dying hours of the parliamentary body of the German Republic. Ergo, American Constitution, American Republic, not democracy. Democracy, root Latin, mob rule. We were a republic, common law equal to all men, all are equal under and before and in front of the bar of the law. See, you got to add all this other stuff. That's what the lawyers created. All right. Namely, that because of an emergency, it should grant the German Chancellor absolute power to pass any law, even though the law contradicts the Constitution of the German Republic. Chancellor Hitler is at least frank about it. We paid the Constitution lip service, but the result is the same. Now you know why Little Bush said the Constitution is nothing but a damn piece of paper. Because that's all it was to him, because he was in the know. He knew with the National Emergency Act that there is no Constitution nor any Bill of Rights. They have been suspended under these acts and the repeated emergencies down through history. And then he signed into law the War Powers Act, Patriot Act 1, 2, Victory Act 1, 2. It's mind-boggling how much they keep legislating to keep the people in darkness as far as knowing their rights and responsibilities, because our government has abrogated those rights and responsibilities to, well, I guess you could say corporations, maybe. Okay, now let's see if this time try number 6 will work.